All right, so get this. Today we're diving deep into just one single photograph.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
here's the twist. We're not just going to look at it. We're going to really unpack it,
Yeah.
all its artistic layers, and then we're going to see what kind of philosophical questions it throws at us.
Yeah, I think one thing that gets overlooked with photography a lot is, you know how much intention goes into it?
Oh, for sure.
Like all the choices that the photographer makes, the way they frame a scene, the lighting,
Yeah.
all of that is adding up to a very deliberate message.
Totally. It's
But
like they're creating a whole world in this tiny little frame.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's actually jump into this image.
Okay.
Imagine two men climbing out of this icy water onto this pier.
Oh, wow.
Everything is frozen solid.
Yeah.
You can practically feel the chill just looking at it.
Yes, and that sense of cold is no accident.
Right.
The photographer, Christian Medetzky, is a master at evoking that emotion, using the elements. He actually comes from a whole family of artists, musicians, painters, you name it.
Oh, wow.
So it's really in his blood.
It's like he's got this whole artistic legacy behind him, and he's just taken it in this really powerful direction with his photography.
He has.
I mean, this guy started with a 6x6 AMI camera when he was a kid,
Wow.
and then transitioned over to digital photography using these high-end Canon DSLRs.
Mhm.
Now he's racking up awards left and right.
Yeah, he won the William Neal for his portfolio.
Exactly. So impressive.
Yeah, and yet there's this rawness to his work
Yeah.
that you don't always see in award-winning photography.
It's like what grabs you. Right, you mentioned the cold,
Mm.
but there's also this sense of triumph,
Yeah,
resilience.
for sure.
These men are struggling, but they're pushing forward,
Yeah.
and it's all captured in black and white, which I think just adds to the intensity.
Absolutely. The black and white, I think, strips away distractions.
Oh, yeah.
Like color, and it forces you to look at what's essential,
Right.
you know? The contrast of the dark water, the white ice, the figures of the men,
Uh-huh.
and the way he uses that natural lighting gives it almost a hyper-real quality.
Yes. It's like you're right there with them.
Like you can feel the cold.
Oh, it's so visceral. And the way the background is blurred really makes the men, pop out.
Yes.
It's like the world is just fading away around them.
Absolutely. And all that matters is their struggle.
Yeah.
It's like he's visually isolating them, highlighting their choice to be in this extreme environment.
Wow.
It's almost an echo of Sartre.
Ooh.
You know, like that whole existential idea that we define ourselves through our actions.
Whoa. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
It's like the blurred background is saying, everything else melts away when you make a choice, like stepping into that icy water.
Right.
It's all about that moment.
Yes.
That decision.
That decision. And then you've got this incredible contrast, not just in the light and shadow, but the composition as well. These men emerging from this chaotic, fluid environment onto this solid pier.
It's like they're moving from one state of being to another, like crossing a threshold.
Yeah.
Almost like the ladder is a symbol of their will to climb, to push upward.
It's powerful stuff, and it really ties into some pretty big philosophical ideas.
Okay.
For example, Nietzsche's concept of the will to power. You see this incredible grit in their faces, right?
Yeah.
That's Nietzsche's will to power in action.
Yeah.
It's not just battling the elements, it's battling their own limitations,
Oh.
pushing beyond what they thought was possible.
Okay, so we've got Sartre saying they're defining themselves through this act, and Nietzsche saying they're tapping into this primal force of will.
Right. Yeah.
But then there's also this other way to look at it,
Yes.
right? More of an Eastern philosophy vibe.
You're thinking Taoism, perhaps?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of seeing it as a struggle against nature, it's more like this harmonious flow with nature.
Right.
Imagine the men, surrendering to the cold, becoming one with the water.
Yes, that's the essence of Wu Wei, that effortless action, aligning yourself with the forces of nature.
Instead of fighting against them.
Exactly.
So we're already seeing three wildly different interpretations, and we haven't even gotten into the symbolism of the space itself.
Right.
It's amazing. I love how art is like this prism refracting all these different meanings and perspectives.
Exactly. And it challenges us to question our own assumptions.
For sure.
Are we seeing a struggle?
Yeah.
Or are we seeing a surrender? Or
Yeah.
something else entirely?
Right. What's going on here? My brain is officially doing backflips right now.
Yeah.
But before we get too lost in the philosophical weeds here,
Sure.
can we circle back to the photograph itself for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned the symbolism of the space, and I'm
Yeah.
really curious to unpack that.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
So think about the icy water, for instance.
Okay.
It's not just a background, right?
Right.
It represents this rawness of nature, this force that can both challenge us and like consume us.
And then you've got the pier, which is so solid.
Right.
Man-made, this structure that offers like safety and stability.
Exactly.
Almost like a visual representation of civilization.
Exactly. It's this really stark contrast between, this unpredictable power of nature
Yeah,
and the order that humans try to impose on the world.
totally. And the men are like caught in between those two forces.
Yes.
Literally climbing from one to the other.
Yeah, bridging that gap.
Bridging that gap.
And that bridge, that transition, is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
This reminds me of Gaston Bachelard.
Okay.
He was a philosopher who wrote about what he called the poetics of space.
Oh, interesting.
And he argued that the spaces that we inhabit, they actually reflect our inner experiences.
Okay, so like that icy water could be a metaphor for like some internal challenge.
Exactly.
Like a fear that the men are overcoming.
Precisely.
It's not just about like the physical act of climbing. It's about conquering something internal as well.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm with you.
And the pier, that solid ground they're reaching for,
Yeah.
could represent this sense of accomplishment,
Okay.
of like reaching a new level of awareness or understanding.
But I'm also like struck by how the photograph captures this specific moment in time.
Yeah.
It's frozen, but there's also this feeling of movement, of flow.
Yes, it captures that fleeting moment.
Yeah,
But it hints at this like broader flow of time.
exactly.
It's like we're witnessing just this tiny sliver of a much larger story.
Yes, it's like that split second is just packed with the weight of everything that came before and everything that's about to come. It's like the past is the plunge into the water,
Right.
the present is the climb,
Yes.
and the future is whatever awaits them on that pier.
That's beautiful. And it really connects with Heidegger's concept of lived time,
Uh-huh.
where, past, present, and future, they all converge in
Sure.
that intensity of an experience.
It's making me think about how photographs are both like static and dynamic
Yes.
at the same time.
They are.
They freeze a moment, but they also spark our imaginations to like fill in the gaps and create a narrative around that frozen instance.
Exactly. And that narrative is really where personal interpretation comes in, right?
Yeah.
What do you see happening in those moments leading up to this image? What
Yeah.
do you imagine is going through their minds as they climb?
Yeah.
What awaits them on the pier?
Okay, so we've talked about these different philosophical interpretations. We've talked about space and time.
Yeah.
But there's one more technical thing I kind of wanted to touch on.
Oh, okay.
And it's the golden ratio.
Ah, yes.
I know this is like a math concept,
It is.
but I've heard it like relates to aesthetics and composition.
Yes. The golden ratio, it's often found in nature and art.
Yeah.
And it's said to create this sense of visual harmony
Oh,
and
wow.
balance.
So in this photograph,
Yes.
how do we see the golden ratio?
Well, look closely and you'll notice that the latter, it acts as the central dividing point.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
And if you were to apply the golden ratio to this image,
Yeah.
you'd find that these key elements, the men, the pier, the water, they're all positioned in a way that aligns with this principle.
Wow, so it's like influencing our perception without us even realizing it.
Subtly, yes.
Creating this sense of balance and visual pleasure.
Exactly.
So Medeski isn't just this like master of capturing raw emotion. He's also carefully composing his shots using this ancient mathematical formula.
Precisely.
That's incredible. It's like art and science colliding.
Yes. The golden ratio, it just adds this layer of subconscious harmony, enriching the visual impact without us even realizing it.
Okay, my mind is officially blown.
Yeah.
We've gone from like Nietzsche to Sartre to Taoism,
It's a lot, yeah.
explored the symbolism of space and time.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're talking about like the golden ratio.
Right.
This one photograph is like a portal to a whole universe of ideas.
And we haven't even touched on the concept of transcendence yet.
Oh, wow. Okay, tell me about that.
Well, think about it. The men, the space, the frozen moment,
Yeah.
it all kind of points to this larger idea of rising above limitations,
Okay.
both physical and mental.
So it's like they're pushing themselves beyond what they thought was possible, not just physically, but like mentally and emotionally as well.
Exactly.
And it challenges us to do the same.
It does.
to look at the challenges in our own lives and ask, what am I capable of overcoming?
Exactly. The photograph becomes this metaphor for human potential.
Yeah.
The ability to face our fears, step outside our comfort zones, and ultimately transcend our perceived limitations.
It's a really powerful message.
It is, and it resonates so deeply with, I think, our own desire for growth and transformation. I'm speechless. A lot to take in, isn't it?
Yeah, this deep dive has been like a roller coaster ride
It has been, yeah.
through art, philosophy, and human potential.
It has.
I'm still processing everything.
But that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sparks something in us, makes us think about the world.
Yeah.
And ourselves in new ways.
It feels like we've only just like scratched the surface here
Yeah.
of what this photograph has to offer. It's amazing how this one image can spark so many different interpretations
Right.
and insights.
And that's what makes art so powerful.
Yeah.
It's like this mirror reflecting our own experiences and perspectives back at us. What we see in art often says more about us than the artist who created it.
I'm curious, for you personally,
Yeah.
what's the biggest takeaway? Like, what resonates most strongly with you?
You know, I think what strikes me most is just that sense of resilience,
Yeah.
that determination to overcome no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that even when things are tough, we've got the capacity to push forward, to find that strength inside ourselves, to keep climbing.
I love that it's like those men are like embodying the human spirit.
They are.
That will to survive and thrive no matter what.
Absolutely.
It makes me wonder, like, if you were to step into this photograph,
Okay.
what would your personal journey be like?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think for me, that icy water would represent the unknown.
Yeah.
The things that I'm afraid of, the challenges I don't really want to face.
And the climb.
The climb would be that process of like confronting those fears,
Okay.
pushing myself out of my comfort zone.
Okay. And what about the pier?
The pier would be that feeling of accomplishment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that feeling of having overcome something really significant.
So it's not about reaching a final destination,
Right.
but it's about the journey itself.
It is.
That constant, like, evolution.
Yeah.
Striving to become better.
I think that's a message that resonates with everyone.
It does.
We've all got our own icy waters to navigate, our own climbs to make.
For sure.
But this photograph reminds us that we have the strength to do it.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we're all capable of transcendence
Yes.
in our own way.
In our own unique ways.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
The next time you see a powerful image, take a moment to really sit with it.
Yeah.
Ask yourself what it makes you feel,
Yeah.
what it means to you.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to, like, let your imagination go
Right.
to make connections that might seem unexpected.
I love that.
You know, art is at its most powerful when it makes us think,
Yeah.
feel,
Yes.
and explore ourselves.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey
Thank you.
through a single moment in time. We'll see you next time for another deep dive
Yes.
into a world of fascinating ideas.